Okay. Right, the title wasn't up, but for some reason. It's just a... So, welcome to a new game, Crisis in the Kremlin, the Cold War. I've been looking at this game's development for a while, played the demo a few times, so... Right. I presume Last Hero mode is basically Iron Man, so... Right. The 5-year funeral culminates into the beginning of some new stage of the country's history. But no one can yet say what kind. The Soviet people are waiting for changes, but at the same time they believe that the government will be able to keep all the good things and get rid of only the bad. Several groups have joined the struggle for power, using all possible legal methods of struggle to defeat their opponents in order to start implementing their program for the future of the Soviet Union. And how will it end? So for right now, with the game only having just released, it's in the very basic stages. It does appear to be planned that eventually you'll be able to select more starting years and more countries. Right now they've got 6 specific leaders. For example, the premier that did historically die that year, as well as 5 others, including the one that historically became, well, premier. Or just party leadership. Forgot what the name of the leader of the country was. Oops. Of course, I'm gonna correct that. Sadly, they have removed the ability to add your own specific avatar, otherwise I would have made a joke about how this is a game, so I need, that is, you know, relatively realistic, so I need to put a realistic portrait in. So I would have put in a satellite image of Antarctica before going to my usual avatar. I might edit in a picture of what I used for the demo, but anyway. I'm just gonna take a moment to look up what surname means, because I've seen it so often in legal documents, but I keep forgetting what it means. Just note that the game pauses on lost focus, so... I don't know if there's a way to turn it off, and it doesn't seem to be the case. Ah, okay. Yeah, it's... Ah, okay. Family name. There. Okay, right. It's important to select traits. I can have up to 5. One of them has to be a sympathy trait. There is plenty of traits available. Aesthetic, you're Atlanticist, anti-Atlanticist, compromising. And you also have to ensure that your point value is at, well, positive or 0. Preferably 0. Generally speaking, the ones that give you positive points are usually a bad idea for one reason or another. Though all of them really... you have to wonder if it's a good idea. So, for the loyalties, there is social... it's one for every faction that exists in the game, at least for the USSR, because presumably once they release other... what was it? Other countries with their own political systems, it will look different. So I'm just going to quickly build up a character. Let's see here. Okay, you can only fit 4. Not sure. Okay, I could just. Yeah. No, thank you. No, no. It's anyway. So, the start of the game has quite a bit. This is the military alliances map mode. Right now there's only the Warsaw Pact, NATO, and official neutrality within Europe. There's also several conflicts here that I can take part in. 4 of them right now. The Civil War in Nicaragua, between the Contras and the actual government. This shows player support. They used to show the country flag too. Right. So the game largely runs by event. Additionally, there is the budget that you can finagle around with. Personal preference is to lower it, well, to pay off US debt until debt maintenance goes to 1, which it currently is, because having debt to them actually improves relations. Then you do have, well, there is only 3 up here that shows relations. You do have relations with every country of the game. Those are just the 3 that are considered the most important. Because, you know, the US is fairly obvious. China is also somewhat obvious right here, being the great power, well, the big power of East Asia. And France is somewhat considered the leader of the European countries, the Western European countries anyway. After all, Germany is still split in half and kind of a puppet of the US. These are even more interesting. Yes, definitely more modifiers now. Probably because now that the game's out in full, there's more availability of time, and things need to be balanced and all that. Anyway, there's multiple screens. This is the obvious one, the diplomacy screen, shows a map with various map modes. There's lots of them. Sanctions and economic blockades. Hasn't happened yet. Though there will be something for South Africa, I know that. Subsidies, trade. Can close trade. Comic-Con, close trade. Trade agreement is available. United States is not a member. Huh? Any of the following. Oh. Oh, so you can do a trade agreement if the US loses the Cold War with anyone, regardless of alignment. Okay. Here are the decisions. There hasn't been. I thought there would be some here, but there's a lot of them, so I will need to take time to look through a lot of these. Okay, the diplomatic aren't that bad, but the political, yeah. It's also economic. Army. I can't. Oh, well, enactable decisions aren't just, so that's. First enactable, then disableable, and then impossible decisions. Well, currently impossible. Party, nothing's available. Agronomy, you have to deal with the issue of empty shelves. Space stuff and computer stuff. There's a lot. You've already seen the budget screen for a moment. Every little thing here you can dump money into. And with that, you can affect the various statistics that you can find here. All of these end up affecting various things. You want to keep Army, Special Services, and military leadership loyalty high, as well as the loyalty of the Army too. If anything, these go too far down, you will run into serious problems. The loyalty of the intelligentsia is also fairly important. Then there's consensus unity, which helps keep the state together. Because the most dangerous thing to any state is its own population. If the population turns hostile to the government, then the game is over. Quite simply. Spiritual contentment is also fairly important. There's also, yeah, several things, including 3 specific to the US. US combat readiness, US economic stability, and US public satisfaction. If I can lower those enough, the US will lose the Cold War, potentially collapse. Then there's the Doctrine screen. Yes, this is a lot. But this is pretty much how the government is set up. So, for example, we have the Geneva Conventions active. Combat readiness levels higher than 50. Those effects. I can also move to these. However, I cannot do this. No modifier named period of settling into the job. For the beginning, these doctrines are not going to be important. There's possibilities that can come up. Policy of neocolonialism. And of course, I presume that because of at least something like this, aspects are specific to certain countries. I'm not going to look at all these except for ones that are particularly interesting. Oh, this one's interesting. Because there's so many possible economicals. Oh good, they've interconnected these a bit more. Deeply echeloned operational tactics of operational maneuvering groups. Trade unions, problem of composition. And yes, you can take the Yugoslav model. Separations of parliament. powers. There is a long list. Type of government. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of doctrines allowing me to finagle the state of the country around as I please. Then there's also tech. There's 5 tech trigs I can handle, plus my own intel on how the US is researching. 10 techs for me to tell what they're doing. There are 4 different kinds of tech points. Military points, physical points, cybernetic points, and civil points. These are the symbols in order. Sort of. Okay, so it does it in order of quantity probably, up here. Down here, this is the preferred order. There's also some level of mutual exclusivity. For the military technologies, you can only research one branch. For the other techs, if a branch's research has already started, it increases the cost of science points in other branches by 20% until all sciences of this branch are fully researched. This is to encourage you to go down one tree at a time. It's pretty important for me to pick a military tech somewhere. Plus, there's also priority. This is also a description for each tech. I may read these in the future, but for now, I'm just too busy trying to get everything set up. Especially considering I'm planning hour segments, so. This costs just physics points. It's pretty important that I deal with the agriculture. Okay, so this allows adopt new food program. Use of high yield products. Okay, back to science. Yeah, techs generally don't actually do direct benefits. It mainly unlocks decisions. With the exception of the military techs. Military techs do have directed benefits from what I just quickly saw. But the other technologies are all about unlocking decisions, allowing you to do things. With the military techs, there is diminishing returns on impulse of combat readiness level. Which is basically the thing that prevents you from getting too high from having an increase. Resting point mechanics, basically. Yeah, state of agriculture. I need to deal with the state of agriculture at some point, so it's pretty important that I do this. I don't know if points build up, so I'm going to do that. Pioneer technology is extremely important, since it allows me to get more research points. Let's go with the left side. Oh, I can swap around order now. Probably should talk about the modifiers at some point. Let's put an emphasis on local conflicts. I'll add more text as these research in order to ensure that all the points are being used. Then there's politics. It is weird to have just an empty image here. These are all the politicians within the Soviet Union. The important ones, anyway. The ones big enough to have, you know, a name and an image. And that we'll directly interact with. Right now there's 57, and the number can change due to events. Either new members, or deaths, events. Finally, there's a Congress, which shows which factions are available, as well as a short description of each faction. Right now, there's only 4 factions actually available. The Neo-Stalinists, the Conservatives, the Moderates, and the Reformers. You can also support a faction. There are 4 more that aren't available. Social Patriots, Informal Socialists, Liberal Democrats, and National Democrats. So, each faction. Let's go down the list. And also, this is only a general idea. The real number of supporters, yeah. Social Patriots. Social Patriots strive to create a great country where everything is subordinated to the state, and the state, in return, meets the needs of the population. Sounds like a bunch of welfare-loving fascists to me. Yeah, I'm gonna make humorous jokes about each faction, so. Informal Socialists. Okay, this is a lot more than it was in the demo. Informal Socialists are representatives of informal youth and intellectual movements, who are in favor of reforming the state from the standpoint of democratic socialism. They seek to become a constructive opposition by criticizing bureaucratization, the lack of real worker self-government, and the distortion of socialist ideas, without rejecting the foundations of the Soviet system. Problem here, there are limits to how far you can go within the Soviet system. I mean, the demo had, it just basically said that it was a movement inspired by postmodernism, which is, yeah. Then there's the Neo-Stalinists. The Neo-Stalinists are fascinated by the era of the vozhd of the people, and seek to implement Stalin's renewed ideas, taking into account the mistakes of 1953 to 84 and global experience. Ugh. I don't even need to say anything. They're disgusting on their own. Conservatives aim to preserve the achievements of Brezhnev's rule, both its worst and best aspects, believing that the Soviet example has proven itself. Ah. The country is not doing well. I'm just going to put it out there. Moderates, currently the leading faction. Moderates are inspired by the positive experiences of the new economic policy and Chinese reforms, but want to avoid the negative aspects through democratization while maintaining the party's vanguard role. Slightly better than conservatives, but not by much. Reformers. Reformists dream of combining the Hungarian and Yugoslav economic past with the liberal structure of Scandinavian socialism, and are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve this. Considering their efforts are one of the reasons why the Soviet Union collapsed, gotta be careful with that. Liberal Democrats view the Soviet experience as entirely negative and seek to replace it with classical liberal democracy as quickly as possible. I don't like them at all. Sadly, they're one of the reformers' biggest fans, so to some degree, I'm going to have to work with them. National Democrats strive to create a great state filled with spirituality and a fanatical belief in an organic state. Ah, okay. So they're welfare-hating fascists. Yeah. I did pick the Informal Socialists faction to work with. Well, to be a part of. So I'm going to need the Reformers to become the leading faction. In order to do that, I need to increase their influence in the Central Committee. Right, let's go back to the decisions. There's also available modifiers. These are various things that affect my country. For example, Peaceful Space Program, Cold War, oddly enough, with the PRC, I actually get, yeah, more negative relations from the Cold War than from NATO. Currency hegemony. The hegemony of the dollar. Patent system. Formal participation. There's also a technological embargo from NATO, which is greatly annoying. Disable. NATO does not exist, or friendship with the West. That's not going to happen, the friendship with the West, so I'm going to need to eventually work on trying to dismantle NATO. Colonization of the moon. No milestones complete. Dealing with hostile embassies. Limit of staff and hiring. Current president is Saint Ronnie. Which is affecting my cybernetic points. These are political modifiers. Alcoholism. I need to deal with that somehow. The intelligentsia are loyal, for now. Disabled modifier penetration of postmodernism is active. That will become problematic, although I don't know what it will do because the demo did not include that. The influence of Americanism. Sexual freedoms, fertility bias. That's something that's going to need to work. Conscription of students into the army. That's mixed. It is nice to have more military leadership loyalty, but yeah. There is a period of settling into the job. Political authority points minus 50, doctrines cannot be changed, and politicians cannot be appointed to positions. That sort of thing will be handled by event for the time. Language policy, equality. Well, I don't care about the social patriots, national democrats, and nationalists or monarchists. Yes, monarchism is a possibility. Though the strength of radical opposition increases, it's going to be annoying. Red flag with hammer and sickle in 1977. Economic, forestation, moderate. Gotta be careful with that. The Aral Sea will dry up by 1993. Plan for transforming nature. I'm working towards that, so it's not going to be an issue eventually. Hopefully I can get to there in time. There is a housing crisis. No effects until January 1991. Which was around the time the Soviet Union collapsed, so. Production automation is at level 1. This is problematic stagnation. The upper limit of agricultural power is 60. Agricultural power is the effectiveness of the industry. And this will get worse every year. So I need to work on that. In order to do that, I need to adopt a new food program. So. Employment policies. Criminal punishment. I'm currently an oil exporter, so I'm getting an income from oil export. I have a monopoly on foreign trade, which is useful, since it gets me more income for every 10 exports. Party, privileges of the bureaucrats. Oh. It's giving a lot of political authority and a lot of loyalty for the leadership. But that's going to be something I'm going to need to deal with eventually. Finally, there are empty shelves in regions, which is getting worse. I need to work on ensuring that problems don't appear, since this is guaranteed problematic. There's also a livestock shortage, which again is fun, but at least it's starting to fade. Since provides an upper limit for consumer goods and availability and luxury availability. Yeah. And we have a labor shortage, which is lovely. Which is providing an upper limit to all industry power. Plus the effects of the various modifiers. All in all, we're in a problematic state. But maybe I can work through it. I'm always going to get elections soon, but that's not enough time for me to do it. So right now there's a civil war in Nicaragua, the Angolan Civil War. Which, interestingly enough, there's factions on your side too, that... Yep. The Iran-Iraqian war is something that I'm not actually participating in, but the USA and France are. It doesn't help that, well, Iraq is aligned with me. Iran is fairly independent, though. Thing is, they are... yeah. It's the Ayatollah regime. And then there's the fact that the Afghan civil war is still ongoing. Yeah. There's only so much I can do to work with that, but for now I am settling into the job, so let's finally get started. Dear comrades, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the Soviet state, the entirety of the Soviet people have suffered a heavy loss. Konstantin Chernenko, an outstanding party member and statesman, patriot and internationalist, a brave fighter for the triumphs of the ideals of communism and peace on earth, has passed away. Today, an emergency plenum of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union took place. The plenum considered the issue of electing the General Secretary of the Central Committee of the CPSU. The plenum unanimously elected me as the General Secretary of the CPSU. I have assured the Central Committee of the CPSU that I will make every effort to faithfully serve our party, our people, the great Leninist cause. I don't think I need to make known my own personal opinion of Lenin. So that the program guidelines of the CPSU are steadily implemented, continuity is ensured in solving the problems of further strengthening the economic and defensive power of the USSR, increasing the well-being of Soviet people, strengthening peace so that the Leninist domestic and foreign policies of the Communist Party and the Soviet state are persistently implemented. Right, I should go ahead and say by now what my plans of the game are, my goals. Number 1, survive. This is the most important thing. If the country collapses, then to some degree my efforts will have been in vain. And that's something to be avoided. Number 2, democratization of everything. I want to get as close to direct democracy as I can, politically, confederate and decentralize as much as possible, and release state control of the economy without going towards capitalism. Where's the economic system? There. This economic syndicalism is the goal to go for. It's not perfect, but it is so much more the direction I want to go to. Neo-Georgism is... yeah. Of course, these will have modifiers effects. And then number 3, win the Cold War. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, considering the US is going to be difficult. But there is one thing. The radical modifier I picked makes it a lot easier for the US to fall apart. since the US's economic stability is going to be lower from this. Of course, there is goal number 0. Avoid a nuclear war, because in almost all certainty, at that point, everyone loses. So yes. Right. Euro missile crisis. After the Reagan administration, influenced by conservative militarist circles, settled in the White House, all the results of the detente of the 1970s came to naught. Our proposals to return to a policy of disarmament and reduction of global tension did not find a response from the American leadership. Since the beginning of the decade, the situation in Europe has continued to deteriorate. In response to the aggressive actions of the USA, we deployed several hundred medium-range missiles on the territory of the GDR and CSR, and plan to increase the supply of weapons in the future. The US then began to deploy Pershing II medium-range ballistic missiles in FRG, and also installed BGM-109G Tomahawk ground launch missiles in FRG, Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, and Belgium. The Euro missile crisis has reached its climax. Any further steps to deploy missiles will only lead to increased confrontation and the threat of a nuclear conflict. Maybe we should try a common ground with the Reagan administration. I can increase the number of missiles and place them at Hungary as well. Make things even more unstable. Continue missile deployment in Eastern Europe, or declare a moratorium on redeployment of RSD-10. Let's just declare a moratorium. Okay. Okay. The USSR will pursue an active constructive policy, considering relations with the USA to be an extremely important factor in international politics. The USSR does not look at the world only through the prism of these relations. We understand the weight of other countries in international affairs, and we take this into account when assessing the general situation in the world. From this day on, I want to emphasize the Soviet Union is introducing a moratorium on the deployment of its medium-range missiles, suspending the implementation of other retaliatory measures in Europe. This moratorium is valid until November of this year. What decision we make after depends on whether the US follows our example, whether or not they stop the deployment of their medium-range missiles in Europe. This will cause problems at home, but will make things slightly better with the European countries and the US. The livestock shortage is getting worse. Mourning is left behind. The country is returning to its former life. Now is the time to start working. But in what direction should our country go? Internal problems have been growing for years, and the Soviet Union is in need of reform and transformation. But in order to carry them, you need your own team. Now, we do not have a stable majority in the Politburo and the Secretariat, so it's worth starting with the position of Second Secretary in the Central Committee. According to party tradition, the Second Secretary oversees issues of ideology and personnel policy, and also leads meetings of the Secretariat, and in your absence, meetings with the Politburo. 6 candidates have been distinguished. We've got Kozapolov, editor-in-chief of the Communist magazine, under Myro Stalin, who initiated... No. Nope. I am not bringing a neo-Stalinist in. Got Demichev, Minister of Culture and one of the ideologues of the Brezhnev era. Conservative. Ligachev, a nominee of Andropov and an experienced regional leader, head of the Tomsk Regional Party Association for many years. Moderate, not really. There's also Dogik, another nominee that has been working since 1983 on the Commission for the Development of Economic Reform. His skills aren't that great, admittedly. There's Yakovlev, once an Orthodox Marxist and promoter of Shelepinsky Group. He was a bully for the Nationalists and Literary Gazette, and after all that was removed from work in the party apparatus and sent as ambassador to Canada. He's a liberal Democrat. No. And then finally there's Gorbachev. He can become a great ally if I work with him. I'm sure he's going to appreciate this. This will increase the influence of the reformers and give me more political authority. Hopefully I can get done with 1985 in the hour. Sverdlovsk Colonel. Changes and reforms require new personnel. Negative trends have emerged in our construction, namely an increase in the volume of unfinished construction despite huge capital investments. Your close and influential party members, represented by comrades Ligachev and Dorgik, propose to consider the candidacy of the first secretary of the Sverdlovsk Regional Committee for the position of Secretary of the Central Committee for Construction. During his tenure, he was able to improve regional indicators for supplying the population with necessary food products, and also achieved the construction of the metro, gaining experience in the field of construction. The majority in the Politburo agrees with the proposal, except for Tikhonov, who does not feel it in this position. However, the final word is yours. I feel like I know exactly who this is. This is a bit suspicious. Let's do a thorough investigation first. The candidacy of the first secretary of the regional committee was met negatively by members of the Politburo. In particular, information about the candidate's craving for strong drinks aroused strong suspicion. The Commission found errors in a number of indicators regarding the supply of the region. They also pointed out his youth and excessively rapid advancement up the party ladder. I know this weakens the Reformers faction, but I have a very strong feeling I know exactly who this is. This is probably Yeltsin. I'd rather not have him involved. April plenum, personnel issues. Currently, the Politburo Central Committee of the CPSU, the governing party body of the party, and the interval between plenums of the Central Committee, is in a limbo since it absorbs two different generations of the party. The Brezhnev generation and the younger party members who emerged in the early 80s. However, none of the parties have a clear majority. Currently, there are 11 members. Why am I on here twice? 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, it is correct. It's just that for some reason I am displayed twice. At the same time, the two places remaining after the death of Chernenko and Ustinov remain vacant. Current members of the Politburo, that is, those party members who can participate in the meetings but do not have the right to vote at them, are the following. I'm not reading all those names because I am, among other things, going to butcher all of them. I'm well aware of that. The next plenum is due to take place soon, at which we can strengthen our influence in the Politburo by promoting loyal candidates tipping the scales on our side. promote radical reformers. Now we see that the preconditions for crisis phenomena have matured in our society. Our credibility in the eyes of the people is rapidly declining due to our many strategic mistakes. We need to reconsider some issues that are of fundamental importance to us. In this regard, I make a proposal to recommend several comrades for election to Politburo. I think their personal qualities are most consistent with such a high party status. All of them have indomitable creative energy, know how to build relationships with people, and have political experience. We will not be mistaken. If the party trusts them, this appointment will only strengthen our ranks. Politburo is expanded to 14. These 3 people have been pulled. Sadly, 2 of them are liberal Democrats, but that's fine. They're going to be okay with at least my political efforts. I don't know if they're going to be fine with my economic efforts. That should help. Because I need to ensure that the neo-socialists become, the informal socialists become open. That I need the reformers to come. Even during the reign of Andropov, a number of economics and sociologists were given carte blanche to develop projects for Soviet economic. One of the key documents, the Novosibirsk Manifesto, stated a significant link between the production relations of the Soviet society and the development of productive forces. The authors of the manifesto named one of the key problems of the national economy of the Soviet Union as the predominance of administrative methods of economic management over economic ones, and centralized methods over decentralized ones. Over the last decade, the rate of economic growth has decreased significantly. Disproportions in the development of industries have increased due to the lack of goods. Workers have become disinterested in the results of labor, and most importantly, fixed assets of production are rapidly becoming obsolete, while the introduction of new technologies lags behind, despite huge capital investments. In this regard, economics offers several solutions. Some propose to launch a policy of acceleration, expanding imports, budget spending, and recognizing the lag of the economy at the official level in order to achieve an advanced level of development in mechanical engineering. This program should raise our mechanical engineering to the world level in just a few 5-year plans. Just a few, yeah, 2 decades. India superpower by 2025. Wow. When was that a thing? 10 years ago? 20? Second group proposed to restore Andropov's method of enforcing discipline, Teodor Chernenko, arguing that this will revive production and reduce the amount of downtime and production defects. But a significant part of the apparatus believed that the words about the problems of the Soviet economy are all lies and slander against the socialist system. It is necessary to start a campaign to persecute dissidents. I don't have enough of any specifics. I would like to do this. Because this would allow me to go forward, but I can't right now. Maybe in another year this will come in. But for now, I can't do anything about it. There's just not enough support from the party. Problems in the economy continue to exist, and so far, the country's leadership has not tried to solve them. Sadly, I can't do anything about it. I'm well aware those problems exist. They're a natural result of centralization. Decentralization works. In May 1955, the Soviet Union and the countries of Eastern Europe concluded the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance, which served as the basis for the creation of the Warsaw Pact. The conclusion of the treaty was a response to the refusal of the Soviet Union and socialist countries to join NATO, as well as FRG's ascension to the alliance. The Friendship Agreement was concluded for 30 years, and now, because of the approaching expiration date, it needs to be extended. The upcoming event could be an excellent opportunity to provide certain signals to our strategic adversaries. Let's do it without unnecessary noise. Signing of the protocol on the extension of the treaty took place in Warsaw, originally signed in May 14th, 1955. The meeting in Warsaw took place on the eve of the 40th anniversary of the great victory over fascism. The memory of the fallen, the duty to the living, and future generations require us to not forget the lessons of history. The war must not happen again. Such is the will of millions. By extending the Warsaw Pact, the participants in the summit meeting in Poland expressed the firm conviction of our peoples. Through joint efforts, war can and must be prevented. The policy of the ruling parties and governments of fraternal countries and all the activities of the defensive alliance of the socialist states are aimed at this. Of course, I still have to deal with the wars down here. Thankfully, it looks like we're winning in Angola, so that's good. Should actually assign an advisor here. Let's send Yazov over. Anti-alcohol campaign. Anti-alcohol campaigns of various scales were repeatedly initiated and carried out by the authorities. Later, this campaign took place during the reign of Andropov, when severe penalties for drinking alcohol at work became part of a set of measures to strengthen discipline. Although at the same time, the production of the cheapest Soviet vodka, Moskovskaya, began with an initial cost of 4 rubles and 70 kopecks, nicknamed Andropovka by the grateful people. However, drunkenness in the country has acquired catastrophic proportions. On average, over the past decades, alcohol consumption has increased to 10 liters per year per person, and even more when taking illegal moonshine into account. Oh boy! The party most zealously advocates for the need of anti-alcohol campaign by Gorbachev and... Okay, the text of that event seems a bit off. The grammar of that sentence anyway. When he was the first secretary of the Tomsk Regional Committee, Ligashov, not without success, strove to turn the city into an exemplary sobriety zone. Now they want to fight drunkenness, considering it one of the main reasons for the stagnation of the Soviet economy. They propose to annually reduce vodka consumption by 10%, organize separate society throughout the country, and limit the sale of alcohol. Other party members propose returning to the experience of Brezhnev's campaigns, which consisted in increasing the prices for high-proof alcohol and reducing its production in exchange for increasing its production of wine and beer. However, the Council of Ministers is against the campaign, since there is simply nothing to close the budget hole that is created by a sharp reduction in revenues. The ministers propose to limit ourselves with only strengthening anti-alcohol propaganda. In any case, we can follow in Antropov's footsteps, become a folk hero by making vodka even cheaper. Let's ban strong alcohol. Rejected the objections of the ministers, declaring that you can't get into communism on vodka. However, do not agree with the radical proposals, which are too adventurous and will only lead to an increase in illegal production and the spread of surrogates. At the beginning of May 1985, a joint resolution was adopted by the CC and CM of the USSR on strengthening the fight against drunkenness and establishing order in the trade of strong alcoholic beverages. This resolution essentially introduced a prohibition in the country for high-proof alcoholic drinks, provides a serious reduction in the places and times of sale of strong alcohol, and introduces additional measures to combat moonshine. A decree of the Presidium, issued a week later, reinforced the fight with administrative and criminal penalties. In addition to these events, large-scale anti-alcohol propaganda was launched under the slogan, "Sobriety is the norm of life." The resolution claimed the need to create better conditions for free leisure. Therefore, the next 5-year plan provides for the expanded construction of cinemas, sports complexes, clubs, libraries, and public catering places. The results will be difficult to predict. Its authors claim that it will solve issues of labor discipline and increase the birth rate and life expectancy. I'm not so sure on the first, but the second one, probably. However, all other alcohol remains on sale. This should protect the country's budget from a serious reduction in revenue. Hopefully this won't cause too many issues. Oh wow, that is a serious reduction. Oh, the Republic of South Africa is rightly regarded as one of the most developed countries in the world. However, its success is built entirely on segregation and discrimination. After the end of the Second World War, the National Party came to power in the Republic of South Africa, which, for the past decades, has pursued a policy of apartheid, racial discrimination and segregation against the indigenous population by the white minority. In addition to complete separation in economic, social, and domestic spheres, special reservations, Bantustans, were created for the black population, where representatives of one nationality were to live. Opposition in the form of the local Communist Party and the African National Congress was severely persecuted. An ANC leader, Nelson Mandela, has been in prison for the past 20 years. The international community has imposed all sorts of sanctions and restrictions on South Africa since the late 1950s, forcing the country's leadership to abandon its own nuclear program, which would have been awful if they had succeeded. Due to the country's growing isolation, the ruling party split into several opposing groups. Belichte, or the Enlightened, representatives of the large industrial bourgeoisie, embarrassed by the economic and international costs of apartheid, advocated a relative liberalization of the regime. Verkrampte, or hardliners, who fought for the interests of the white farming, continued to insist on maintaining the old course. In the late 50s, the country was led by a Belichte supporter, Peter Bonner, who had to make certain political reforms. These consisted of a tricameral parliament with separate chambers for whites, colours, and Indians. Blacks were not citizens of South Africa and had their own authorities in their Bantustans, most of which had by this time gained formal independence. In addition, the most odious apartheid laws, such as the ban on mixed marriages, were repealed. The reforms caused a split in the National Party, a radical far-right wing, led by Andries Troyanicht, split from it and founded the Conservative Party. Yeah, conservative. Despite the Reagan administration's favorable attitude towards the anti-communism of the MP regime, the US did impose sanctions on South Africa. Why would I work with racists? Join the sanctions. The only negative is that South Africa likes me less. And if the racists save me, obviously I'm doing something right. I'm gonna pause for the moment with this one. We've gotten started, not enough time to really do anything, but it's been a long hour. I'm going to need to adjust the budget real quickly to ensure that things don't fall apart. I need to increase envelopes to ensure that there's enough. I don't need so much for the bureaucrats though. Okay. That should be good for now. Like I said, I'm going to do this hourly, and there's probably going to be a bit of editing with this one, but not much. So, that should keep time down. Yeah. Let's see if we could save the Soviet Union. Turn it into something actually great instead of whatever horror that Lenin turned it into. And then Stalin worsened. Anyway, see you again next time. Till then.